I was like, I need to do something to change my life. And I just got to such a state where I was like, you're going to be dead before your kids get to, 15. Just for me, I think my life changed when I got to about 40. Got to 40 and I was pushing 20 stone. Decided to run a marathon, as you do. But from that went on a real big journey. And then COVID kicked in, which was the worst time of my life and probably the best time of my life. I was very close to killing myself. At the time it was COVID, like we've mentioned. Lost my wife, found out I got ADHD in a little one-bedroom flat, got made redundant, started going to the food bank. I was like, fuck me, what's the point of being here? It was a Tuesday night and I was standing there with a massive knife in my hand, but all I could think about was my kids. And yeah, to this day, they're my life. All of that darkness, all of that pain, what came out of it was beautiful. From darkness we can find light. And I'm a very big believer you can be at your darkest place, but if you can find something that can motivate you, or you find that little nugget that you can cling on to, go with it and move forward with it, really.
I'm on a mission to help the world to see success differently. We're sharing the stories of our guests. I hope to inspire those that listen. This is the Different Hats podcast, produced by H2 Productions. I hope you can join us on this journey. Okay, I'm just going to say something about one of our sponsors, Riverval. The world of cars, vans and minibuses is often a pain point for many of us. The hassle of finding the right vehicle, let alone looking after it, are all more things to add to our lists as busy people. Riverval's mission is to make motoring manageable, and that's why they provide leasing, purchasing, servicing and vehicle management. So whether you have one family car or a fleet of vans for your business, Riverval are your trusted vehicle supplier. Visit www.riverval.co.uk. Okay, let's jump back to the podcast. Okay, welcome to another episode of the podcast. Here with a legend, the man, Howie McConnell. How are you, sir?
I'm good, my friend. How are you?
Mate, buzzing. I'm buzzing to have you on.
That's what I like to hear.
Mate, this is going to be, go. Look, we're gonna jump straight in, right?
Yeah.
Talk to me. How do you define success? What's it mean to you, mate?
So it's a big question, and I've watched a lot of your podcasts and people's different views and, thoughts on it. So it's a bit of a triple header for me, if I'm being honest with you. Something as small as being able to go out for dinner. I look at that as success. Look at my life a few years ago, which we'll probably touch on later, which wasn't a possibility, just to go out for dinner. But also just being present in the time for my kids. See them a couple of times a week, so that's a big thing for me, just to be there for them, and also just finding peace. Sounds weird, but I've got a crazy brain 24/7, so finding peace and finding ways to settle it and just feel better in life, not worry about certain things and just sort of get on and move forward with stuff comfortably. I guess that's my sort of triple header on it, so to speak. It's always good to look at the bigger things, but for me it's about being happy in life and being content, and not having to worry about stuff 24/7.
Well, how do you find presence, and how do you find that peace in your brain? What do you do how can you find that?
So, as we'll probably touch on, I've got ADHD, which normally I've got a crazy brain 24/7, so it's just learning to switch off from the world, which I've been sort of trying to train myself to do over the last few years, where it may be going for a walk, going for a bike ride, going for a run, or, something like that, just to get away and just sort of calm the crazy, as I like to call it. It's the easiest way of saying it. Yeah. It's not, these are only my thoughts on my sort of things, or it's just trying to switch off from work, we work a lot of hours, you know, being self-employed, run our own businesses, and I think sometimes it's 24/7. So it's finding that time to be able to just step away from everything, and just calms the brain. Well, for me it does. You know, everybody's got their own things that they do, you know, and what they see peace as, or whether it's a spiritual thing. For me, it's you know, just trying to calm the crazy.
Yeah, we've all got like you're right. I'll find. Actually, you know, you filmed me down the beach up, right?
Yeah, that's it. A lovely beach hut.
Yeah, lovely beach hut. You got the view of me coming out like me. But anyway, but yeah, that's it. Like for me, like trying and because it is. I think just for anyone will resonate. Like who's an entrepreneur, who's a business owner, and self-employed. Like you never really your brain doesn't switch off from work that much, and it's trying to find those little nuggets of time where you can, like, whether it's like, for me in the sea or like you say by the beach or whatever that looks like, and we all because we do need it, right? We need
100%. And I think if you'd asked me a few years ago what my idea of success, it would have been completely different.
Talk to me about that then. Would like go back to? I guess I want to go back to the start really. I want to know, I guess something about life growing up that shaped who you are. I'd like to find out about that, and also like, I guess that early stages. What was the definition then back then?
What of success? I guess if we go back to when I first started earning money, should we say? Yeah. I always wanted to be a millionaire. I'd be doing, always had a side hustle, always trying to make that extra buck to try and become a millionaire. Yeah. You know, back then it was different. Your views change over time, I think, and as a person you grow, and you don't necessarily think that money is the be all and end all, which, you know, I think it's being content in life is a big thing as well for me now. But back then, it was all about the hustle and trying to make extra money, and, you know, to be the richest man that I ever could be, which went from making lighters with fur on. Random things, but we're going back to, like, you know, it was anything that but it was always on a creative kind of aspect back then, which I probably didn't know.
Even at school, was you a bit like that, like always thinking of like different things? I guess talk to me about school life and that. What did you want to do? What was your dreams back then, or what was your ambition when you?
School was pretty crap. Really? I'm not going to lie to you. I'm dyslexic. Yeah. I've not got a lot going for me, have I? But you got to laugh about these things. But I got put in remedial classes. You know, I was classed as stupid. But back then, I don't. You know, the education system didn't understand. I don't think dyslexia or, you know, ADHD back then, it wasn't such a thing. You know, but I was really into music and art and, you know, graphic design and that back then at school. But being a rebel, decided to drop all of them, and then done, you know, just crap subjects because I thought it was cool. You know, so, but then I look at my life now, and everything I've done since I've left school has been predominantly in the creative world.
That's like, there was a brilliant TED talk. I can't remember his name. It comes to me, but he talks about how school and the education system now almost stifles creativity, right? Yeah. Because we don't, the creative arts or whatever is part of the education system, but a smaller part that's not maybe focused on as much as maths, English, and all of those academic subjects. And that's such a shame, isn't it? It is such a shame. It is,
because I look at my my daughter now. You know, she's I won't say she's struggling at school, bright as a button, just can't find that thing that she wants to do still. And I kind of see a lot of her like I was at school, in the, you know, loads of energy, loads of, you know, wanted to learn, but just couldn't focus on that one thing that done it for me, if that's the right thing.
Because like for me, so much I wish we could get people within the education system to lean into the things that they do love, to lean into things that they are passionate about, or they do, because you're gonna get better results from those people. 100%, you know, like if someone nurtured that creativity in you, and saw your passion for music and the creative art, and was like, how you're a genius here, you got a gift in this, like, lean into that more, like maths and stuff, you know, that's fine, and you've got to do that as part of the curriculum, but less of that and more of this. Like, if we could identify that, and I guess the difficulty is, and I don't mean like I think teachers are superheroes. I don't think that but the curriculum that they're given is so rigid and structured and archaic that it makes it to a point where all of this side over, because all you're doing is teaching kids about maths or English that to a level that they don't need to be.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. Yeah, no, and it's I see it. My son's autistic, and goes to a school where they try and, I guess, because of his, I'm not going to say disability, because the way he's wired. I hate the whole sort of disability kind of thing. But they very much do that. They can see that he's good at. He seems to be into computers and maybe a bit of programming, and he loves art. But they try and push that more.
Amazing.
But it seems to be more in a mainstream school. They're so focused on you've got to do your maths, English. Of course you need them. Don't get me wrong. But I do think they miss a lot of people's gifts, shall we say, to push them in that direction for later life.
I think it was Jimmy Carr said it. I've used it probably only a couple of times. Like Jimmy Carr said, what we don't need is more kids that are shit at Pythagoras rule. Like, who gives a fuck about that? Do you know what I mean? Like, you just look at it and go, no, you need some basics. But and the fact now with modern technology, and you go back to school, are we going to E minus C squared or whatever that looks like? Do we need that necessarily? Unless you're going to really go into that type of field, you're going to be an engineer, you need something around them field. Then you don't need to focus on that as much, surely.
No, I couldn't agree more. And I guess if you're at school and you want to be an accountant or you want to be an engineer or something like that, fair play, go for it. If that's what you know at that age, let them work on it and let them push you to where you need to be. But
how do we? How do we fix it then? What's the because I said to someone recently on an episode. There's not one person I think who's sat opposite me who's gone, it's not broken, and I agree with. I'm saying these things, and people go, as you've done. Yeah, no, mate, I completely agree with you. What's the solution? And how can we all see it? Everyone I'm speaking to sees it, and we go, but we're still going to do what we do in the education system.
It's a difficult one, isn't it? I mean, it's they don't seem to be changing it at all either. Just having children at school, I don't see my daughter say they're trying to push her into something different. It seems to be that, like you say, it is what it is, and it's going to probably stay that way until there's some drastic change in the law or the education sort of system. But
I guess I don't know. I guess for me, it's the only thing I can sort of. I'm looking at maybe the framework in which we measure. Again, measuring success, measuring their ability, I guess, in schools. Is it that for me, it's the measure of emotional intelligence and actually more the life skills that are they not being taught or within schools more, and that actually, because when I mentioned it to a head teacher recently of Hurst College, and my question to him was, why are we still measuring purely academic intelligence and not even focusing on emotional intelligence? And he said his answer, which was fair, but saying because that's tangible, you can't really measure emotional intelligence, but you could create environments where that's celebrated. You could put them in groups that they're talking about emotions and sharing stories at that time.
I'm a big believer that they're going into the real world. They need real skills, and I think the way that a lot of kids, not every kid, but they're so into their phones, they're so sort of disjointed from the world. I guess as say when I was younger, it was all about being out with your mates and experiencing the world. But now it's almost done through a screen a lot of times. So I do feel there's a lot of life skills they're not learning at school when they, for when they leave to, get them into the real world, so to speak.
Yeah, no, I get it. Tell me a bit more about this. So with school, but good upbringing in school weren't great, but you
do you know what? Love being a kid. I'd do it all again tomorrow if I could.
It was easier back then, mate.
It was very easier. But no, as I say, my we're originally from Essex. Or South London, South East London, whichever way you want to call it. But we moved to Burgess Hill when I was about 10. My dad had a really good job. He used to run Trust House 40 back in the day, which is BA and in the airports. But yes, it was good upbringing, good family, good strange moving away from Essex. Met some good friends in Burgess Hill, lived there until I was 21. Moved to Brighton. But yeah, those early days were good. Still in touch with a lot of friends now from back in the day, so to speak.
I love that.
But yeah, I guess when my dad used to work so hard, he'd be out a lot working. He'd be long hours, and it kind of my mum would be working. So I guess I kind of got into this kind of work ethic at a young age where. Starting to cook the dinner for when they got home from work, and just doing the washing up and stuff like that. As all kids should do. But that was part of our kind of routine, and I kind of guess it shaped me into being a bit of not necessarily a workaholic, but realising that
you understand work ethic.
Right? Yeah. Well, that's it. Just knowing that things need to be done, and you need to get them done, and you got to get them done to get to the next stage, so to speak. But yeah, I would say as an upbringing, it was pretty cool. I've got nothing to grumble about on that.
And then, I guess coming out like you said, I wanted to be a millionaire, and you go out. So what was the career path? Where did you?
Oh, you ready? It's a bit of a roller coaster one. Are you ready?
You've had quite. I'm so excited.
Strap in, Sam. We're going in. Okay. I never went to college. Got asked to go to college. Never went to it. But at the time, I had a Saturday job. So and then from the Saturday job, it was for a company called Mr. Minute, which is a shoe repairers. So basically, I left school and then become a shoe repairer, as you do.
Of course.
What else am I going to do? It means I could go out with my friends. I could go out the weekends. I was loving life. Managed to buy a car, and was just living a 17, 18-year-old loving life. All seeing all my mates at college with no cash and all that. I thought it was brilliant. And done that for a few years, and then I kind of went into a sales job for a bit, which it was just door-to-door selling advertising. So I was like, and I moved to Brighton at the time, so it was like, yeah, this is all right. Again, I'm earning money, I'm getting to travel places. Again, nothing special. But then I kind of got to a bit of a crossroads, shall we say? So moved back to my parents for a bit, and we bought a clothes shop.
You and your parents?
My dad, yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I started this clothes shop, but then also at the time I realised that I need to get some sort of education. So I kind of started seeing my mates starting to do all right for themselves, and I was like, well, look, I've got no qualifications, so to speak, all very basic, nothing that's going to get me anywhere. And when we moved down from London originally, that's the best way to say it without sounding a bit like so we kind of brought some of the London fashions down with us. Where I lived, we used to go to Romford, and stuff like that. And it was the fashion was probably about 8 months to a year in advance of itself. So we'd go back home and I started wearing all these different clothes. And everyone was like, this is all really different, isn't it? Where'd you get that? And I was like, maybe we're onto something here. So we started this clothes shop. But when we started out, I also started studying at the Region Academy of Fine Arts for fashion design. So I was like, cool, clothes shop, I'm going to be a fashion designer, life's sorted now, this is what's going to happen. I'm going to be the next Alexander McQueen, sorted. That's my life mapped out in front of me, happy days. But also in that sort of stage, I discovered the rave scene, which is probably the best way of saying it. So started DJing with my mates, mucking about, going to clubs all the time. And a night out in Brighton, we brought a mixtape down to a club, which used to be called the Beachcomber back then. And my mate got a gig DJing there. I was like, fucking, this is great. We've got a club to go to all the time. I've still got the clothes shop. Things are all going hunky-dory. And then from that, I started getting in with them. And then they offered me a job as a promoter there. Oh, sorry, no, they offered me a job as a DJ. So I was DJing from 6 till 9 every night, sunset sessions on that. And by then it had turned to the Honey Club, which had become one of, the country's, formidable clubs. It was amazing, So I started DJing there, and then got asked to run some of the promotions. So from that, we started running the club. There was a team of promotions managers there, and I was one of them. We all run different nights and all had our own little jobs and stuff like that. We also had a bar that we looked after, and there was a record shop as well. So, and then that's where I spent probably 8 years working.
Wow. You still had the clothes shop at the time?
No, we shut the clothes.
Right,
Sorry. So the clothes shop we had for about 18 months.
Okay.
The rates went up ridiculously for where it was in Burgess Hill, and it was easier to shut it. It was wiping its face, but it wasn't making money.
Yeah. Okay.
So it was kind of so then I kind of knocked all that on the head. The fashion design. I was like, right, I'm going to be world famous DJ now. So the joys of my brain. I say 100 mile an hour. Sod that. I'm gonna go and do something else. But it was amazing. You know, we got to work with some of the biggest dance acts in the world. We got to travel the world. We got to, you know, it was. But where I found my love for creativity. So when we first started there, I remember the owner Gary going, "Look, we need some posters made. I'll show you how to use Photoshop." I was like, "Oh yeah, blinding." So then I started designing the artwork. So I'm putting on the nights, DJing, designing the artwork, and I was like, "This is fucking great, loving life." And we enjoyed life. That's probably the best way of putting it. You know, every night was a party. You'd work 4 nights a week. You'd be back in the office by 9 o'clock in the morning, but you work bloody hard. You know, and
It must be full on that type of.
Because you'd finish work. So this is when clubs were, you know, they'd shut at 2 o'clock, but we used to have a late license until 6, and then the later licenses come in again.
Yeah.
But so I'd work normally Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights, some Mondays, some Sundays, but then back in the office the next day to kind of get everything done. You was just fueled on Jack Daniels, beer, and, you know, whatever passed your way, so to speak. And it was great, you know, it was brilliant. But I mean, from that, it's kind of what got me the creative buzz back, if that's the right word for it.
Yeah.
So I started designing all the artwork as well, and then slowed down on the DJing and was just promoting the nights. And we put everybody, you know, we had Radio 1 there, we had Alicia Keys, we had, you know, Swedish House Mafia, Pete Tong. They was all part of our bigger roster, if that makes sense. So, you know, every week we was doing something different.
Must have been, especially I guess you through your 20s, that is, right?
Yeah.
Through what an amazing.
Yeah, and you know, I wouldn't change it for the world. You know, I've always said I've got so many stories from it. You know, from just random stories. I mean, what's always stuck in my head. I remember we had Radio 1 there, and Alicia Keys was doing a live PA. But just remember her, you know, just doing a rehearsal, and us just sitting in the room with us. So in this massive building, and just her on the piano, and it was just like kind of mesmerising. And then you got the flip of you've got, you know, people like Swedish House Mafia, going absolutely crazy, drinking as much as they can, and, you know, dancing on the bar with them, you know, and, you know, all the different celebrities that used to come through, and making up stories to get people in the club. I remember one night Robbie Williams was playing at the event. And, you know, the club was quiet. It was a Monday night, I think. And he was like, "Oh, what are we going to do to get people in? You know, the town's dead. Everybody's going to see Robbie Williams. We need punters." So we went up the queue at the end of it, telling everybody he was coming back to the club for an after party. And all of a sudden, the club's mobbed. You know, about 800 people descended on the club. And a long short of it, it was like, and everyone's going, "Where is he?" And he was like, "He's up there in drag, so no one notices him." And he got all these people going, "Robbie," you know, shouting at this balcony. It was just some woman that's up there. Just little things like that. But it was always thinking on our feet and trying to go to the next stage to get people through the door. Because when the club got bigger, we had to put 5,000 people through the door a week. Wow. So I mean, it was a team effort. Don't get me wrong, but, you know, it was a lot of sales, working with businesses. You know, talking to business to get corporate events in. And then, you know, stag and hen parties started coming through the door, and it was but it was trying to work for a real big demographic of people to get them through the door. You know, which was great. And, you know, I say I wouldn't. Amazing years. Still got some really good friends from it. Some great stories. Still bumping into people. I mean, Michelle, as I said when we walked in, Michelle from Audio Active, she used to work for us at the club, and that was 30 years ago. And it's you know, always bumping into people. And you know, without diversing too much, this is what I say about my networking. You know, I'm not the biggest networker, but when you're putting 5,000 people through the door of a club, which is one of the biggest club in Brighton at the time, a lot of my networking was done years ago. And I've got business from people now that remember us from back then.
Wow.
So, but I mean, going back without going on too much of a tangent, I mean, I started doing more and more of the design work. So we was designing it for all the clubs, and then I started getting other people coming that asked me to do their design work, because the whole ethos of me doing it was to try and do something different to the other clubs, because there wasn't many designers back then, and everybody they're very samey. So that's how the creativity started, should we say? And from that's how 28th Street started as well.
Right. Okay.
So what not many people know, 28th Street started about 17 years ago.
I didn't know that.
So what happened? I found out I was going to be a father. And it was basically the 28th, and I was on the street when I got told I was going to be a dad. Wow. So my boy's 17 this year. Wow. So that's how it came about. So I left the club to go out by myself, and again, being in a bit of a impulsive person. We started 28th Street Events. We started a record label. We started a DJ agency. And yeah, it kind of went out by itself for about 4 or 5 years, I think. But the flip side of that was I was earning a wage and not making money.
Yeah.
So when you've got kids, as you well know, you you need to be bringing money in for the holidays, for the nice stuff. So, but that went on, and I got a contract with somebody, and I'd done their marketing for about 2 years. But it was all going well, but it was just got to a point where it was getting stressful. And being in, an impulse, it was like, I just need to get a job. Yeah. I need to get a job to, pay the bills more without worrying. My daughter was on her way as well, so that, my partner then was, stepped back from her job again, so there's less money coming in. So it was just more about getting out there and getting a job again. So, another job's coming up. So,
mate, you've had more different hats than me.
Oh, mate, yeah, 100%. So, and I remember speaking to a mate, and he was like, "Oh, look, we got a car sales job going at our place. You can talk to people. Do you want to come do it? You get a car, you get a wage, you can earn this much." And I was like, "Oh, I've got nothing to lose." So I ended up selling cars for about 4 years, or 3 or 4 years. Wow. And then from that, there's another job going. The car thing's not that exciting. I was selling cars. It was like, I think I sold Seats and Skodas and Fiats. It was like it was a garage that had 4 different franchises in it. Yeah. Up in Crawley Down. But then from that, there was one of the area managers that I got on really well with. And he was like, "Look, I'm opening a recruitment agency. I want you to come work for me." I was like, he goes, "I'm going to pay you this. But with the car sales, you'd get maybe 10 grand and it was all on commission." Yeah. He was like, "I'm going to give you," I can't remember what it was, like 20 grand and a smaller commission. I was like, "Well, I've got kids, I need to pay the mortgage. That's perfect for me. It's Haywards Heath, it's closer to home." And went and done that. Totally cocked it up. Basically, he was like, "There's a business, run it for me." Didn't really know what I was doing in that sector. Was with him for about 8 months. And then somebody else reached out and said, "I'd see you doing automotive," because it was all in automotive still. Yeah. And he said, "Do you want to come work for me?" And it was in Lancing, where I live now. I was like, "Oh, man, mustard, brilliant, yeah." Done that for... Well, we're jumping ahead quite a bit, but I'd done that and got made redundant by him in COVID.
What?
So, I was with him for about another 3 years, I think. So a few different jobs. They're kind of in the same sort of sector. But most of my past history is in marketing and sales. Yeah. And then COVID kicked in, which was the worst time of my life and probably the best time of my life. Is probably the best way of putting it. So yeah, that's my checkered career history, shall we say? It was.
It's so much, and I get how many. I guess how many people listening will think like, and getting to that point in life where, like you said, like, especially when kids come along, sometimes we have to like responsibilities, and you've got to go, right, I've got to and you have to take that, right, and you go and I
loved to be my own boss back then, and it was great. The only thing was we were still putting on parties, so it was partying as well as making money, but it was it's the biggest thing that changed your life, I think, and I don't think anybody can actually relate to how children change your life until you have them. Yeah,
because you don't like, I don't know about you, but like, certainly for me, I was not. And we had a long journey, like IVF and stuff, to get the kids, and etc., etc. But even up until the second I held them, I was still like, am I ready to be a dad? Like, I can't get your head around it. Yeah. Maybe different for women, because obviously they have the babies and they're there, and you go. But like for me, I was like, but the second you hold them, boom, that was it. Game change, like life changed forever. Yes. And that's it.
Yeah, you think your responsibilities change, the way you think changes, I think. Yeah. I know everybody's different. Yeah. But it's magical, isn't it? You can't really put it into words to a certain extent of how it makes you feel and how it makes you think differently. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about. Let's go into that time, as you're coming into COVID. You've just been, like you said, it's. I mean, look, no one knew what was going on at that point.
That's it. It was a strange time.
The world was turned upside down, and we, something we'd never experienced, and I don't think, mate, hopefully we'll never experience again. But So getting made redundant. Talk me about, I guess, about your mindset around that point. Like what happened then?
So it was weird, but I did get another job in COVID,
Well, okay.
it wasn't the be all and end all, but it was strange. You know, I think so. My best way of saying it, probably my darkest point in my life, without going too off-piste. I'd split up with my wife. I think it was in the March before COVID.
So the year before. Yeah.
Split up with my wife. Had to move into a little flat by myself, so I've gone from a 3-bedroom house, garden, you know, and all that, into a little pokey 1-bedroom flat. And then COVID kicked in. So I'm in kind of grief from that still, you know, the separation. And then COVID kicked in. It was just, I don't know, it was the same for everybody, but it was, very, very strange times. Started off amazingly. But, yeah, it changed.
But what, like, I guess especially, I mean, talk to us about that period then. I guess like being, I guess being on your own and not being able to go, like when, you know, for a lot of people, talks about loneliness, isolation, that type of thing. You with yourself and you can't get out and see people. And did that have an impact then on you then, or
it did? I mean, going back to a side hustle, something like I didn't mention. So for me, I think my life changed when I got to about 40. Again, was grafting, working, but got to 40 and I was pushing 20 stone. And this is diverting a bit because I forgot this bit. So, so I was pushing 20 stone. Decided to run a marathon, as you do, after a couple of bottles of wine one night. You know, but from that went on a real big journey. But this all started at 40. So started losing weight, decided a marathon's not good enough for me, so I decided to run an ultra marathon, so, you know, 100k. But from this time, my mindset was that I need to understand myself more. And this is kind of, I do believe my journey started a lot more when I got to 40. So trained to be a personal trainer. This is all as a side hustle.
was this during like the recruit? Like,
this is the recruitment, so this is kind of like probably 2 years before COVID.
Yeah.
So I know I was doing it, and I passed, and I was started a boot camp. The whole thing about the boot camp was about not being in the gym, all about life balance. You don't need to, you know, you can go and have a burger and that, but still come and work hard. You know, understanding that you don't need to be on the best diet in the world. You know, you're just about being happy. So that kind of, you know, it's where kind of life started, and that did all start. But that, again, that ended in COVID as well. Yeah. So, but my journey kind of started when I was about 40, and I kind of started to understand myself, started to understand probably people more, and kind of.
Do you think?
So I've gone on a bit of a tangent.
No,
not
at all. No.
Yeah.
I'm keen. This is something I really want to take out. Like that point in 40, because I think similar. Right? I've spoke about my journey, and I think what is it that we get to that? People say midlife crisis, awakening, whatever.
Yeah.
We however we want to frame it, I guess. But do you think it's just that we get to that point, and there's certain questions we start asking ourselves, and we start looking a bit more inward?
Yeah, and I think for me, I was probably going through a bad patch with my then partner.
Yeah.
It was a bit of an escapism, you know, and for me, it was like, I need to do something different. But I think I'd been such a, the 40 years before that had been so fast and so blurry and so crazy that I didn't really know what was going on. If that makes
necessarily
sense. Yeah, I was probably lost. I was probably lost. I was probably, you know, and I think not knowing that I had ADHD, I probably masked a lot of my life to get through it. You know, whether it be within work or, you know, I'd be the person that go to work when I was in the cars in a 3-piece suit. Hated every minute of being in that suit. But if you'd sat me down there in normal clothes, I would have probably sold twice as much because I felt comfortable. But I think, and not everybody likes to wear that sort of thing anyway, but it's kind of, for me, I probably spent a lot of years masking it. Got to 40 and I was like, I kind of felt like, maybe I felt like some self-discovery, or maybe I was having a midlife crisis, as they say, but for me it was like, I need to do something because I'm going to end up dead. And I remember I started following a guy called Rich Roll.
Yeah, amazing.
And I remember reading his book, and part of his thing was he got to that same sort of age and he was struggling to get up the stairs to see his kids, and I'm like, I'm that person. And I was like, I need to do something to change my life. And I just got to such a state where I was like, you're going to be dead before your kids get to 15 just from eating shit and drinking shit. So that was my kind of self-discovery time. But from that, I think it's brought me so much inner peace, understanding of myself, understanding of the world, understanding humans better, and just looking at things in a different way. And I always used to look at stuff very black and white. So I'm very much now that person that I try and be half glass full all the time. I'll always try and take a positive out of a negative. And try. Was
you not like that then? Because I've obviously only got to know you probably the last few years, and I would describe you as that positive, that glass half full. But was then I can't imagine you not being like that.
I may have always been like it, but I never
understood.
No, I was just doing life.
Yeah, okay.
If you know what I mean, like, it was just life was just going to get done and gets done in my way, and but kind of didn't really care. And I don't really care about a lot of things these days. Not in a horrible way, but I'm very much I'll dismiss them quite quickly and move on. But back then, I think I was just so focused on living. Does that? But not necessarily in a positive way.
I don't know. I really want to delve into that a little, because I think there's something in like, because so much of the time we're focusing on the future and we're going, we've got to do this, we've got to do that. But actually, what a great phrase to use. I'm just focusing on living and living in the now, which is actually something like, I guess if one of a big thing that's come out of all the episodes I've done is one of the 5 pillars is presence, right?
Yes.
And the importance of being present in the moment now, where we are right now. And that's got to be like a message for people to listen and take away. Like, be ambitious, have big dreams and do the things, of course. But I love that phrase. I'm living in the now, and that's such a.
And I think I still do it now, but I think I'm probably maybe a bit more conscious about it. Where back then it was just life,
just getting on.
I was earning pretty good money. I was just doing life. It was great. And it wasn't until probably late years when I'm doing life, but I'm nearly 20 stone. I'm turning into an alcoholic, and I don't know if then that was just, but that's because when I was in a normal job as well, and I think that's what it was. And I think that whole working in the club scene for so long, it was, you're about expressing yourself and you're about being creative, and the more creative you are, the more exposure you get, because people want different, and I was all about different, and nothing needs to be uniformed. It's about just being me, and I'm always do that now. I mean, I am Howie, and that's, you either love me or hate me, and it's nothing bad. It's kind of you get me, and you get me at 100 mile an hour, and it's like you're either ready for it or you're not. Because sitting here, and if you're talking to people, and I know that we kind of get each other, but there's some people that look at you and go, what the fuck. And it's never a bad thing. It's just you're going to get 100 mile an hour, and it's always trying to do the best and always trying to look out for people and do what I can. But it's, I don't really look at. I used to dwell on the past a lot and the good times, but I'm very much now about for now. What's going to happen today is going to happen today. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I know it's a bit of an old cliche, but it's very much like that. And if you're having a good day, fucking embrace it, enjoy it. Tell people you love them. Go and, all right, mate, text someone like you've been doing. Just to see if they're all right, and just because life is too short. And if you don't enjoy it, I don't want to get to that stage where I think. If you're 70, 80 and you think, oh, what have I done? If someone's, people that have passed or something, if you didn't just reach out to them that once, or, I think it's a very, very strong thing that people don't do. But I think you do get caught up in your own world and you do forget about people. But I think as long as you're living, and I hate the word authentic sometimes, but you are living your best sort of life, and, you get me on my good days and my bad days, and, but I think if you're doing that every day and going out and showing up and doing what you've got to do, I think it makes you stand out. Makes people respect you, but you're always there for people as well if they need to have a listen as well. And that's very much one thing that I know we're going totally off piece.
No, mate.
But that's one thing that I'm very, very strong on. It's like if I check in on people, it's always, that's probably my last thing. If you ever need to talk, where I am. I don't have a client the other day, and they was like, I'm having a really bad day. I'm like, I know you don't know me, but this is always my phrase. I'm a great listener, but I'm a shit at giving advice. But and there's some people will just let off, and you're like, cool, just bombard me. And it might be because of my ADHD and I'm in another little world thinking about something completely different. But they know that they've got it off their chest and they feel better, you know. And that's one thing that I guess I've always done that. So kind of going back to your question, you know, living in the moment, yeah, I think it's... Perhaps I have always been me, but I think when I got to that age, I started being a bit more conscious about what I said, what I put in my body. And don't look at me now, I'm in no fit states, you know. But it's...
You're looking good, mate.
But it's that... yeah, just being conscious of yourself, I think, and that's, you know, being in the presence, and, you know.
I think there's something, again, people listen. I think I love the fact you're saying that, like, because my brain, the way it is, I'm not gonna fix it for you. I'm not gonna give you a solution, but I am gonna listen. But like a lot of the stuff I've done, especially even with like suicide prevention training, or with like just the conversation I've had and the whole thing, the campaign around You All Right, Mate. So much of it is that as men, especially, we feel like we've got to fix it.
Yes.
Right? We feel like we've got to. If I'm going to ask someone if they're all right and they come back to me and go, no, I'm not really. Oh, fuck, how am I going to do it? What do? I don't know how to cope with it. I've got to fix something. Whereas actually just... Because I remember even, like, you know, I'm really open about it. Like, I weren't in a great place at the back end of last year. But I remember getting messages from you just the odd occasion. Mate, I've just noticed the stuff that I was posting, a lot of the stuff I was posting on social about, you know, mindset or where I was, and just asking them big questions to ourselves, right? But like, you obviously recognised that from maybe from you being in maybe a similar place.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm a big believer. I know they say there's something called about like an ADHD sense, and you kind of can sense things, and it's probably all bollocks, but I kind of keep track of my mates, you know, not necessarily, you know, but you can tell. I've got another mate at the moment, exactly the same. He's gone from not posting, and every post is like a saying or, you know, an affirmation or something like that, and you can see, and I, you know, reached out to him the other day, and you're right, oh no, I'm just really struggling at the moment. But you can tell, and I think people don't want to talk, but there are some sort of signs you can see when they're maybe trying to cry out for help, but they don't want to do it, and that's us as blokes in general, isn't it? You know, I'm the worst for it. You know, I hate talking about my feelings, and it's if I do, it's normally you get a barrage, but then that's I'm fine again. But yeah, my mate, like I just said, he said he's just having a tough time at work. You know, but you could just tell that, you know, people different. I guess because I'm on social media a lot for my job and blah blah blah, you see different things, and you can. I don't know if it's, you know, just me, but I can see when people are. Something's changed in their life.
Mate, you were spot on. Like, you reached out to me, and I was really grateful. Like, just because actually sometimes you just like you're putting it out there, and you just want to be seen, right? Sometimes you just want to be seen, and like for someone like me who is an advocate for talking, and I'll host a fucking podcast to do it, and I'll stand up at events and I'll do it. Actually, even at that period, I was struggling, but I weren't communicating again.
I still remember when I seen you. It was at the BBBC, and I was like, "You all right, Sam?" And you were just like, "Yeah." And I was like, "He's not right." You could tell you was like, you were distant where you're not, and you're normally Sam, you know, a big hug, you know. But you can, you know, I think you can tell, and you know, not that we see each other very often, but you know. And it's just been, you know, looking out for people.
And I can't tell you how grateful I was for that time. But also, I guess, like, for you and just listening to your colourful journey and stuff like that, but actually focusing on just knowing people, being around people, and just like, you're a people person. Maybe it's a bit of an Essex thing, who knows? But it's that thing where you just know people and you get to know, and I think that's such a thing. But I'm keen, like you've mentioned obviously a few times about the ADHD. When did that die? Because that was obviously a late diagnosis, wasn't it? When did that?
I was 45 when I got diagnosed.
Yeah, okay.
I'm a young 51 now.
You're looking well, mate. You're looking well.
It's all a drink for over the years, pickled the insides. But no. So my son's autistic. And it's a really difficult way to get. The spectrum's so big. You know, it's not worth trying to describe him. He's on the spectrum. I wouldn't say it's severe, but it's not mild. You know. But anyway, that's so. But my then partner used to say, "There's so many traits in you. You're so black and white the way you think. I reckon you got autism. I reckon you got autism like Preston." I'm like, okay, well, let's go and get diagnosed. Thinking it was going to be a quick trip to the doctor, you know, cut the test, and then... So 18 months later, still sitting on diagnosis and blah, blah, blah. So it took me 18 months to get a diagnosis. Right. So find out when I was 45. So, and tying in with finding out I had ADHD, my wife then, us splitting up, not leaving, we split up amicably. Yeah. Then going into COVID, it was kind of...
So the ADHD was before the...
Yeah,
before
so
COVID,
I'm sitting there with like a million thoughts going, what's happened? You know, what's it? My brain's like this. I'm fucking weird. You know, but the way I call it now, I embrace my crazy. That's probably the best way of doing it, because the way I look at life, and this, I'm very, again, black and white. I got to 45 without knowing I had ADHD, and I've had a pretty cool life. You know, I've done a lot of things, but you know, and I've met some cool people, and I got to that age without it affecting me. So like the year after, I was like doing loads of research. Why am I like this? What if I do this? What if I eat that? Is it going to make me different? What if I meditate? And trying to fucking meditate when your mind's like, it's quite hard. You know, I did try it. I was down the beach every morning on the rocks. It was like, wow. There's a seagull. You know, it was one of those things. It was, you know, and so for some people it works. For me, it didn't. But that's, but yeah, it was quite a struggle trying to understand it. And I got put on medication that was fucking horrible. And it got to a point, and I was like, well, I've got this far. Step away from it all. You are Howie. And I hate talking to myself as a third person, but that's who I am. It's like, that's why I'm very much blasé about now. You're either going to get full-on ADHD Howie that's a million mile an hour, or you're going to get chilled, normal. You know, it's kind of...
Has it helped, like, getting the diagnosis, has it helped you understand yourself?
100%. I think that's what I was saying, that's when my life started. You know, I started with like learning about my body and understanding people when I done the boot camp, because I wanted to understand people a bit more, and why do we get to this place, and you know, and then I've started working on myself. Is probably the best one. This is what I say about being in peace with myself, and I still struggle today, but I know now that shiny watch for 500 quid isn't going to be any different to the watch that I've got on. Still trouble with trainers. I'm a bit of a.
We will have a pair of clear rainers, mate. We will.
But so now, and I look at it when I was in my relationship with my wife. We'd argue over silly things. Where now, if I was having an argument with somebody, I know to step back. A lot of things are not so impulsive now. Where I was very impulsive about everything. I say about buying stuff, jumping into an argument. I'd be the bull in a china shop. Just doing stupid things for the sake of doing them. Where now I'm a little bit more conscious, and if anything, it's slowed me down a bit, but leveled me out. And you know, probably with business, I say it's probably why I've had so many jobs, because I would get bored at a job and go, right, I'm off. No, it wouldn't be any reason. It'd be I'm bored. Yeah. And yeah, if anything, it's made me understand myself a lot. And every day is a learning day. I take that with my health, with my mind, with business, because if I wasn't learning, I can see what I would look like, sort of 10 years ago. And I was a bit of I'm not say lunatic, but I would just do everything off the cusp. Think of a business, put a business down, start a side hustle, do this, and it was just. But now I'm very much, things happen for a reason. You need to trust the process, which I've found hard all of my years, is trusting the process. But now it's like, with what I do now, it's 3 years old in July, but the amount of times I wanted to walk away because little things, which it's like, no, take a step back, think about it, go back to it tomorrow. Don't do it today. Send that email tomorrow. You know what I mean? Whereas, so yeah, it's made me, if anything, it's made my life better. It's made my life better.
I just wanted to take a moment to talk about one of our sponsors, Nostos, an authentic experience of Greece right here in the heart of Hove. In a world brimming with dining options, finding that one place that captivates your palate and heart isn't always easy. It's about more than food. It's the stories, the ambience, the slice of another world. This is the essence of Nostos, an award-winning Greek restaurant. With traditional recipes passed down through generations, each dish promises a story and a piece of heritage. And Nostos is more than just a restaurant. It's a community contributor. Each dining experience supports initiatives close to their heart, from local charities to cultural events, enriching Brighton and Hove's social fabric. They also provide catering services, bringing Greek cuisine to your personal events. For a taste of Greece without leaving town, visit nostos-hove.co.uk. And when you do go, say Sam recommended the feta nests. Oh my God, they are amazing. because there's so, like, there's so many people that of my, our age group that I've spoke to. Like, I mean, James Dempsey was episode 2. Come on, he got a late diagnosis with adult autism.
Yeah.
So many people later in life now are getting diagnosed, right? What advice, I guess, would you give to someone like who's just been diagnosed, maybe just starting on that journey of?
I say the same thing to everybody, and I've had lots of chats with people, and it is, don't let it change you, because you've got to, and just to understand yourself, you've got to, whatever age you are, being you, you've managed to rock life, you've smashed it. We've all got to have our ups and downs, but you've done what you've done to get to that age, and just see what you think's bad about you. So for me, it was the impulsiveness, and it was the jumping into things too quickly. But I look at the rest of it. It's like that's why I embrace it now. It is my little crazy. It's like I'm quite happy to share it. I'm not going to sit there and mask it like I did all my life, which people with a late diagnosis probably have, just to try and fit in. So now it's just like you get me for who I am, and I think that's a lot of people go, well, like my ex-wife just been diagnosed.
Oh really?
But she's going down the rabbit hole of, is it this? Is it that? Is it that? I'm like, just be you. You've got to 48 being you. Don't let it change you. Just try and work on the little bits that you don't like.
But that's like, what a brilliant message for people. Because even like, I guess people were not neurodiverse, but just that message as a whole, like, just because we, irrespective of wherever you are on a spectrum, whatever that looks like, we're all going to have little quirky things that people are not going to respond well to. I always found it so difficult I wanted everyone to like me. All my life. Always wanted people to like me, and if people didn't like, what have I done? Must have upset that. I need to maybe do. So, bit of a people pleaser when you go and do them things. Actually, when you start really asking yourself some bigger questions and you start looking inside a little bit more, which I think again, for some reason, comes at later life. I am questioning whether some of these big questions we can get kids to start. I don't know. Can you get kids to ask themselves that question at a young age, like finding out who they are and their values?
And without butting in, I can answer that. My daughter's potentially on the spectrum, but saying to a 13-year-old, you might be on the spectrum, the amount of backlash and it's not true you get from her, it's trying to approach it in the right way that they can understand it. It's it's hard to educate some. Well, maybe just, but it's quite hard to educate, I think, some children about saying they could be different when potentially all of their mates, in quotes, are normal. Whatever normal is.
I guess, but even is it just like you said, just trying to really understand ourselves? Like, I don't think we're given the skills, toolkits at a young age to even question or just look inward. I think we're constantly we're growing up to learn and look outward and etc. But I guess my whole thing at the moment, and I'm just really curious about it, and I'm going to try and do more research, I guess, on it. But the reason I ask is just that so many people, like I said, a lot of people that come on are probably, from our network, similar age group, really, within our demographic. And I'm sort of like, so I have them conversations, and so many people have gone, but got to this age, and I started to question, and I started to look, and then you look inward. I'm just wondering what happens if we give kids the toolkit to be able to just look inward. Is it only? I must say, I'm away from the place, you should tell, right? So I'm looking at, I'm going, is it that we've got to live a life to get to a point to then start questioning?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
Or is it that we, if we was to give those skills at a young age, you could start questioning certain elements of your values and who you are as an individual and look inside, so that you don't get to that midlife, whatever it be. Yeah,
and I think now it's a lot more, shall we say, accessible. There's a lot more knowledge about it. I think there should be something, like you say, in that toolbox as they're grown up to, whether they even have some lessons about it. Because I think, I don't know what the statistics are, but there's probably 1 in 3 people maybe neurodivergent. I don't know what it is, but there's so many people that are, and it's just sometimes you need to approach them differently, if they're having a bad day, or it's just talking to people differently. But if you don't know those life skills, or you don't know what it looks like, and you might see something in yourself, you're never going to know, like you're saying, until you get to an age where you start thinking about it more and going, is it me or is it the world, or you know,
And just like you said, I think it's just embracing your uniqueness. I do, you know, I've spoke to you about before. I do the little lunchbox letters, but the one I done for the kids today was the message in it was that you are. There's the only one of you in the universe, right? So just embrace that. And if for anyone that doesn't understand your brilliance, then that's.
Well, I think that's what we're saying now. It is kind of, you know, there's only one of you.
Yeah.
You know, you don't try and. I mean, this may be just me, but it's like, don't try and be like anybody. It's like with what I do. I kind of try to stay in my own lane. I don't look at what other people do. I don't look at other trends. I kind of try and do me. And, you know, and I think that's what you'll find a lot of people in Neurodivergent is that's it, you be you. And it is quite a powerful thing. It's just like, you don't need to be like anybody else. Just go out there and be you. You're beautiful who you are. You know what I mean? You're loved for who you are. You don't need to look like Jim or Dave or Sarah down the road. You know, you can all wear the same clothes, but just bring your own personality out. Which is what I think a lot of people don't.
Yeah. And again, back to that thing of living that life and looking back and going, why? You don't want to look back over your life and go, I've lived up to other people's expectations of what they thought I should be, but just, like you said, embrace you, be you. Yeah. That's the message, isn't it? That's that I'd love everyone to sort of just take one, I guess. Yeah. Exactly that, right?
Everybody's different, aren't they?
Yeah.
And I think you get there through your own. You know, I'm not saying when I was younger, I might have not wanted to be like other people. You get to a certain point. I say when I got to 40 and the things that happened, that's when I started to realise more that, you know, I am me. And it took me to get into quite a dark place to get there, but that's how I you know, saw it even more so, should we say.
Well, look, if we can we talk, because obviously we've led up to, you know, like I said, your colourful career, and then obviously you've hinted on, you know, your marriage breakdown, and then obviously getting into COVID, being made redundant, and then you just mentioned there about obviously a dark place. Like, just can you share that period of time?
I'm very much a big believer in what happened in my life. I'm quite happy to tell people, because I think there's a lot of it gets people are scared to talk about it. You know, I was very close to killing myself. I think at the time it was COVID, like we've mentioned. Lost my wife. Found out I got ADHD in a little one-bedroom flat, got made redundant, started going to the food bank. I was like, fuck me, what's the point of being here? You know, what is the point? You know, I couldn't think of anything else. It was just like, why am I here? You know, it was like, this is life. You know what I mean? I know there's lots of people in the same situation with COVID, and it was one of those things, you know, everybody had their own way of dealing with it. But all I do remember, I think it was a Tuesday night, and I was standing there with a massive knife in my hand. But all I could think about was my kids. And, yeah, to this day, they're my life, you know. But, before I well up, because it is...
Take your time, mate.
For all of that darkness, all of that pain, what came out of it was beautiful. You know, for me, I was doing a lot of drinking in the time. I think a lot of people, you know, it was nothing else to do, let's face it, was it? Look out your window, spot a dog walking down the road or a squirrel and get excited. But for me, I was broke. I had no money. I had to... So I go to food bank. It was for me. That's why I look at it. It is what it is. You get on with life. You do it. Whatever life brings at you, you've got to challenge it and move forward. You know. So I think I had a couple of grand left on a credit card, and I bought a camera again. I was like, I need something to do because I am going to do something stupid. So for me, it was like, just buy a camera. Don't ask me why. I was probably sitting there looking at loads of YouTube channels and TikTok, and was like, right, I'm going to be a YouTuber. Got nothing else to do. So I bought a camera and started making YouTube videos about ADHD. And I'm very anti the new ones that are in the world, if I'm being honest with you, because it's almost been over glorified, and you know, there's so. But this was just about me, probably about like we're doing it. It's about me telling my story. This is my thoughts on it. This is my thoughts on medication. This is how I thought today. And from that, I remember posting something, and I was doing little videos. I posted something on LinkedIn, and one of my people I worked with when I was doing recruitment, she was like, you should do that as a job. I was like, nah, that's a bit silly, isn't it? I'm just having a laugh. And but I do have a history in it. So I used to do it when I was at the clubs. I used to take photos and videos. And my dad used to be a wedding photographer. So there's kind of, it's ingrained, shall we say, and I, you know, it's not something I just picked up and I thought, well, I'm going to be, you know. But from that, I started working for this other company in recruitment as well, and their whole thing was doing videos for recruitment, and it was like, oh, this is great. You know, it's like COVID, I've got another job, I'm doing something I love, I'm having a bit of a laugh, I'm going on building sites and taking photos of, you know, and video of construction workers to make into like stuff for their recruitment, you know, and it's like, yeah, this is great. But what I didn't realise at the time, this is what I wanted to do. And it was, and I think what sparked it as well, I remember when I was feeling suicidal, I spoke to my old manager. This was before I got made redundant, and I said, I'm having these thoughts. And he's like, you got 5 minutes. And I was like, what? I'm telling you, I'm going to potentially do something stupid. And he was like, you got 5 minutes, I've got to go to a meeting. And I was like, is this what life's all about? And it's kind of, from that, it kind of rolled on. You know, it rolled on. I bought myself a camera, got into it, started doing something like that. I found out I was pretty good at it still. And without saying the rest is history, that's kind of how 28th Street Media was born again. As much as 28th Street, it's always been in the background doing little ad hoc design jobs and little bits here and there. I never kind of really closed it down because it meant so much to me with Preston and that, with the, you know, how it came about. So it's yeah, and that's how it's kind of evolved from being in a real shitty, dark place into being something beautiful and something that I do full time, something that I love what I do every day. And so I think that's why I've done a post the other day, which I said you mentioned. I think you know, from darkness we can find light, and I'm a very big believer. You can be at your darkest place, but if you can find something that can motivate you, or you know, you find that little nugget that you can cling on to, go with it and move forward with it. Really,
mate. Honestly. Thanks so much for sharing. I guess you know, I've shared mine and obviously resonate so much with like being in that, and it's horrible, isn't it? Because when we share, you go get into that, for anyone to get to that place where you feel like, oh, I just don't want to be here anymore.
And it's a weird feeling because it's like, you know, you could, I know people for all different reasons, and I've had friends that have done it, and it's trying to understand it, and I'm sure everybody's got their own thing. And I think what really did my head in at the time as well, I'd been on the phone to some, you know, time to talk and people, and the way they spoke to me made me probably feel worse, and I didn't quite understand. You know, I was probably crying for help at the time, but didn't know where to.
Did you, before you got to that you mentioned that night with a knife and stuff like that, leading up to that, did you reach out for help, or was you?
Do you know what? I spoke to a few people,
yeah,
but I don't think anybody thought. It was like almost like, don't be stupid, you'll be all right. And I think that's it. We don't necessarily. And I'm very much, we need to talk, but I'm very much, there's not many people out there that will listen. And I'm a very strong believer, and I think just from my own experiences, it was very much, yeah, you'll be all right. Yeah. Don't worry about it. Why you think, you know, it wasn't necessarily, do you want to have a chat about it? It was almost like a one-liner back, where, you know, now differently. I think maybe because I've experienced that, I would probably say to somebody, look, I need to talk. You know, I think back then, I know it was only 6 years ago-ish, 5 years ago. But I think since COVID, it's opened the world up to maybe talk more, and people understand that situation more, and maybe are a little bit more open to listen and realise that these things happen. You know, where before it's a bit of a taboo subject to a certain extent. I know it's, you know, I think, you know, since then, I think more COVID opened the eyes to a lot of people about some of the darker stuff in the world, I think. Yeah. Or I was just one of those people that didn't really focus on it because it wasn't my life.
Because I guess again, like, for me, so much of what I'm trying to do is look at how do we prevent it, how do we stop it, how do we change that. So what does that look like? Is it that, again, like I said, we've just launched the "You're Right Mate" campaign, asking that question, but the key for it for me is getting people to answer in the right way, right?
Yes.
So it's a two thing, isn't it? That actually, if I reach out and ask you that question, you respond actually honestly and not just yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah.
Because I don't know about you, but like for me, that was my default answer, right? People would say, even though I knew I was in a dark place, and I wanted them, people would ask me, "You alright?" And going, yeah, I'm fine, yeah. No, or even if you did maybe allude to it a bit, you wouldn't actually really open up about it. And is it that we just need to give people from the younger generation again these skills and toolkits maybe to have conversations like that?
But it's difficult, and I think you've probably seen it as well. And if I ask, you all right, mate, and someone goes, yeah, I'm okay, but if you second, you sure you're okay? Sometimes it takes a second or a third question if you can sense something. But I think the younger generation probably wouldn't even second question it. They'd probably just, like you say, do they need a toolkit? Is there something that can be put in place for them to be more aware of? Because I don't know the statistics at all, and you probably know a lot more. But I don't know what it is in younger people now, because I know it is in.
It's definitely getting a lot. I mean, it's still for men. The highest rate is still like the 40 to 46 age group, but it's definitely getting younger, and actually mental health as a whole for that younger generation, like you're 18, 19, 20, it's staggering. And actually, and the suicide rates as well are so high in that sense. So you look at it and go, how is it that, we've alluded to, I guess, that for both of us, I guess, and I wonder, like, you sort of highlighted, and similar thought to me, like, what's the point? Because again, this narrative around that, especially for where you were, going to a food bank, that feeling of not got a job and I've not got these societal measures of where I should be at that age. That's where that feeling, I guess, I'm trying to unpick it. Was there a feeling of like failure? I
think there was, but I think, like I said, for me, it's a bit like, and it took me a long time to do it. I'm not going to lie. I remember at my boot camp, people bringing me food. So I was still doing my boot camp online, for the first part of COVID, and then bringing me food, and they're like, it was like, fuck me, there are some really good humans out there. The world has got some real good people in it. But it was more of for me, it was more of a pride thing, I guess. Never been in that situation. I know a lot of people hadn't. I don't get it, I didn't do it for long, but it was still the whole, it's more of a pride thing, from being a bit more old school maybe. It's but but then you look at it, it shaped me to who I am now. It's one of those things. I wouldn't have changed it, because I think it's all a life learning curve.
And I guess just like, I guess as you sort of mentioned in that part, like going back to that point where, like, your kids, you've mentioned before, like, kids are your anchor, and they're the thing that that, and same with me. But I think I was at that point of thinking, I guess were the thing that helped you come through that side and give you that, because we all need purpose, right? That's what we need, and I guess wherever we can search or wherever we can find it, knowing that, I guess that you're there for them and they're the rest of their life, right? And that's where was that point there was what got you out of that to because what was the gap between you feeling like that and, I guess, the buying the camera and
it probably wasn't a huge thing, because I think I'd been out. I got the other job pretty quickly, to be honest with you. But I think it was just the whole circumstance, and it was only when I first started doing it. I think it was only a few hours here and there, just you know what I mean. But it probably wasn't long after that, and I think I was just sitting there, and I was like, and I at the beginning of COVID, I'd run my last ultra, so I'd done from Eastbourne to Arundel. I'd done it because the event I was supposed to be doing got cancelled. So I was on a real high with life, you know what I mean? And I'd done it, I think I'd run 12 and a half hours and 62 miles. It was amazing, and I was feeling amazing, it was great. But I think it was just the first part of COVID, it was very much being out, fitness, and then something just switched. I've gone from being, Mr. Active, rocking life and doing, to all of a sudden it was like, God, I'm in COVID, I've got nothing, to a certain extent, and it was just weird. So something just switched for me, I don't know what it was. And I think everybody was different, weren't they?
Because I guess, like, as well, just from a mindset point of view. Like you listen to you again listen to your whole story, and then you listen to the point of going, I was 20 stone, and then you're running 12 and a half hours, 62 mile. Do you know what I mean? Like ultras, and you're like, from a mindset point of view, to have the ability, because not I think probably not everyone's got a mindset to be able to go and run a marathon, right? Or especially not an ultra when you look at the thing. So you've obviously got. So do you think there was a lot of that and that mindset that you've just been ingrained in you that helped you to shift that?
I don't know. I'm very much a person that if I set a goal, I've got to do it.
Okay.
I'm not necessarily the best person to go, right, I need to go for a run every morning.
Yeah.
You know, which I've totally fallen off the wagon lately, and I'm enjoying wine and burgers more. But I'm happy. You know, and that's amazing.
That's amazing.
I'm
Absolutely.
happy.
And you're looking good.
But I think it's, I have set goals in my life, and it's probably, again, this is probably back in the day, I didn't realise that. So now I know that if I need to do something, if I need to get there, and maybe it's the way that I'm wired, I'll do it. But if I've not got any goal at the end of the time, sometimes I just don't do stuff. But that's not, kind of like with work. I'm very much, I'll get there, and work is very much, I'm up at 5:30, I'm at the computer by 6, and I'm smashing out because I know that's when I'm in the zone and I know I've got stuff to do. But if I've got no work on, I'll just turn into just a slob and do fuck all. And it's, so I don't know if
it's obviously you need that, again, the creativity, like that, like you said, that turning point. What's lovely about it is, I guess, the turning point for you was that embracing that creativity side for you.
And I think I got to a point, and it was me picking up the camera and saying, what do I want to be doing when I'm 60? Because it's not far off for me, But I look at it and I was like, well, I don't want to be working in an office. I don't want to be on a building site, But I was like, can I still take photos at 60? Can I still do a video at 60? And I was like, yeah, I can. Can I get my kids involved with what I do, and then be happy for that? And I took my son on a shoot the other week, and he done a little vlog for me, and he loved it. And I'm like, actually, he's because of his autism, he's never going to go into a normal job, but maybe he can come and be a little runner for me, stuff like that. So it's working on stuff like that as well. It's it's turning sort of a negative into a positive. I guess that's the way of saying it.
Yeah, I love that. Well, look, I guess I'd really love to. I always think things for people to take away, I guess, and especially people listening who, I don't know, are feeling maybe in a dark place, or for whatever reason might have lost a job, but wherever on that path, and not feeling good. What? Because you'd have turned it around and you have come out the other side. And what advice would you give someone for that, you think?
Do you know? And I think it's finding something that you love, or something that you've got a passion about, because it really distracts you sometimes from the down times. Whether it's just going for a walk or painting, or But that helped me. I think that's what helped me, was going out with the camera and just walking in the fields. I've always said the Downs is my happy place, but taking photos of bushes and birds. But for me, it was kind of this is helping me. And I think it's. Happiness isn't always at the end of a bottle, which maybe I used to think about. I still enjoy a drink, but I don't. Back then, it was probably that was the only way of me getting through the dark times, I thought, was to have a drink. But I think it's just, or maybe finding something that not necessarily inspires you, because I think
because when you're feeling low, sometimes it's trying to search for something like. Yeah. But
and it's just getting out, doing exercise, making yourself feel better. I'm a big advocate for the open air. I love being outside. That's my not necessarily down the beach, but just going for walks or finding something different. It just takes your mind away from it. I think, because if you are feeling low, it's always going to make you feel better. Or trying to find a good person that you can just talk crap to with sometimes. So I think that's a good. Sometimes you've got so much in your head and so much what you want to say, but sometimes you just need a chat. Not necessarily about how you're feeling, just a chat.
Yeah.
Because I think we don't always talk enough. But sometimes just talking about the weather, not necessarily the news, but but just talking something irrelevant can make you feel like you just, that's cool. I'm feeling good now.
I guess it's the feeling of not feeling alone, right? Like because a lot of, I know certainly from my experience is you, from someone that loves being around people, when you're in a dark place, you tend to withdraw more, and you become isolated and you're lonely. It's actually just knowing now, the more I'm around more people, the better I know I can and can be a bit more open. And
Yes.
I think that's the thing, innit? It's just encouraging people to just be
And
more.
I think finding that tribe as well. I think because sometimes you can talk to somebody, and I think they'll not intentionally dismiss it because they've got no interest in it at all, and they've got their own things going on in their life. And you've got to remember that we've all got our own things going on, and you're not necessarily going to have to speak to that one person, and they're going to want to talk to you because something's happened in their life. I had a client, hypothetically, was trying to get this client the other day, phoning, not picking up, and then had something happen in their life, and I was like, sorry, we've had something serious happening in our family. We've not come back to you. But it's like, people do have their own stuff going on, and you can't always expect people to listen to you. But it's finding those core few people that you can just go, right, I'm just going to have a 10-minute natter, put the wells to rights, and you walk away feeling great again.
And I think that's and again, I think the message as well is that, especially amongst men, is just firstly talk. Actually do that, right? Open up, speak to people, whatever that is. And the flip side, if you're the person listening, just listen. And you don't feel that you have to fix someone. Sometimes people just need you to listen, right?
Yeah, they just want to get something off their chest.
Yeah.
And they probably feel 10 times better. You might have not listened in the nicest possible way and gone, great, enjoy your day, but that other person's gone, oh, so glad I've spoken to somebody about that.
Yeah. Yeah, no. Well, I guess I'm just looking at the next chapter for you as well, where you are now, with 20, and obviously in a better place as you mentioned, and which is great, and obviously leaning into create. What do you see the next 10 years?
I just doing loads of cool stuff. I know it sounds weird. I love every day that I work. I put so much of myself into, I think, my projects. Got a few things that are launching soon. So we're opening like an agency side of 28th Street Media, working with a load of creatives that we know that we can call on. We turned away loads of work this year. So it's going to build the business into, we don't have to turn work away, basically.
Amazing.
So we've got a hand-picked few people that we know that we can go to. Thinking about launching the clothing label at last that I've been working on for the last year.
Nice.
So geared up for neurodivergence. So it's all set up, the website's built, the stock's there. I've just not launched it yet.
Do it. I love that.
Having a moment, it's all there. But the idea of that is to the fabrics and that are kind of a lot softer, so that if you are neurodivergent, some fabrics irritate certain people, and it's all about comfort and stuff like that. So that's all ready to launch and done. So that's I just need to press a button on that one, all designed and stuff like that. But yeah, just enjoying life. Do you know what I mean? It's the first time I'm with a really cool person now, and it's I think I found finding that peace, not getting stressed about stuff, doing what you want to do. It's nice to feel happy and stable and level. Don't get me wrong, I still have my bad days, and I'm still in like ADHD paralysis and just like, don't want to do anything. But I just enjoy life. I'm working with some cool people. We're, the business is taking us abroad this year as well for a fashion shoot. It's just nice, and just trying to make what I do better, and keep solving people's problems and telling their stories. Really,
I love that. And I guess that. Listening to your fascinating story all the way through, like if you go back to your 20-year-old self sitting in at the Honey Club, being where you were, what advice do you give that 20-year-old?
Just not to be so impulsive. I think like a lot of 20-year-olds are at that time anyway. You know what I mean? That's what we do. But it was more, just be a little bit more sensible. But don't change yourself. You are who you are. I wouldn't change the way I was back then to who I am now, because I'm still the same person. You talk to me, I get more excited, I get more, my arms are going, I start talking faster, and I wouldn't change it. It would just probably be a little bit more, just a little bit more thoughtful and a little bit more patient with life, instead of hitting it at 200 mile an hour, But I wouldn't change myself, wouldn't change what I've done in the past. It's been great. Just wished I'd maybe started what I'm doing now, 10 years ago.
Do you know? Like, because I always think it's an interesting one. Because I always think that like, I look at the stuff I'm doing now and think, oh, why didn't I just do this? But again, for me, like listening to your, like I said, I think it's been fascinating listening to the whole journey right from the start, and actually, but all of that's led up to who you are now, right?
Yeah,
so it's taken you to that point, and is that creative genius? Because I have called you a creative genius many times with the stuff. Every time you send me through a video, mate, you go, do you need any changes? No, mate, you've nailed it.
And that's always good to hear.
And and you've got that. See, you've unlocked that creative genius, but with
I think maybe not. I think just potentially spending 4 years working in an office was probably not the worst years of my life, but just realising that you're stuck in a room. You can't just go out and do stuff. And I think that's what I love about being a business owner now. I can sort of choose my hours. I start early in the morning with the whole view of finishing about 3 o'clock. So if it's sunny, I can go to the beach. I'll go for it, or if I need to crack on and get on a deadline, I don't have to work until 2 o'clock in the morning. I can still be done at a reasonable time, but I can pick my kids up after school. I can go and meet somebody. You know what I mean? It's kind of, for me, it works. You know, and I know that I'm firing on 110% at 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm like that boss on a computer, and I know that I'm going to go and probably do 2 days' work in the morning. But that's how I work, and it works for me, and it seems to be working at the moment. You know,
I love it. Well, how does it feel like right now? Like, I guess looking at especially all that you've come through, looking at where you are sitting today, and like you can tell the passion about what you're doing and stuff like that. How do you feel like right now? I guess knowing all that you've come through and where you are sitting there, what's that feeling now? Like?
See, it's a real difficult one for me, and I say that in like I've always been. I guess, is it humble? Is that the right word? I don't shout from the rooftops. I don't say I'm the best at everything. I get on and do the job. You'll give me a brief and the job you know what I mean? But I guess I'm quite content at the moment. It's quite nice to sort of go, actually, money's coming in. You know, we've started another part of the business as well where we're doing social media marketing as well, which, again, we don't shout about. We've got a few clients. I'm like, I'm actually making a bit of money for a change. I'm not scared. I can go out for dinner. Life's good.
Success.
Holiday next. But it's kind of actually probably doing a lot better than what I take credit for. But for me, it's probably like everything I've done in as a job. That's what I do. You know, I'm not gonna boast about it. It's just that's what I do, and I try and do it to my best of my ability. But I guess for the first time in a long time, I do actually feel quite content at the moment. The kids are in a good place. I'm in a good place. It just feels quite nice, you know. And that's why I feel like I'm in peace with myself, because it's like, yeah, you've done good, but there's so much more to be done. But for this moment in time, you've done all right, you know. And you get people going, you're doing amazing, you're doing great. And I had someone come up and introduce me as an entrepreneur the other day. I was like, whoa, hello, what's that all about? You know. And it's kind of, I think what I do as a business as well, it's kind of almost looked at as a hobby to a lot of people. And I'm going, actually, I'm building this, I'm building that, that's getting better, we're getting to that figure. We're doing all right. And it's like, you know, potentially employing somebody as well part-time, which would hopefully go through, and I'm like, God, it's really weird. But it still doesn't, to me, it's just like I'm still in that, I'm just enjoying it. And I think while I'm still enjoying it, and our money's coming in, I'm content. I'm like, actually, yeah, you've got business, you know. It still feels weird to me. It still feels really bizarre.
Is it only now that it's starting to feel then like a business? Because like before, like you said, like doing photography. Actually, a good friend of mine who started similar, like during COVID, picked up the camera and he loved taking pictures, and he was really creative, and then he gave up his job to start doing. And he actually, what he found is, for him specifically, was running a business, and he's actually lost the love for photography because he's trying to run a business and get the clients and stuff, and so that's not worked out. He's gone back to another job, and he said it's fine. I've actually said for the first time I picked up a camera and went and done it just for fun, as opposed to it being for a business. But like, obviously you genuinely love it, and you're so good at it, and you're making money from it as well. And so is it for you? Is that like now? Did it not feel like a business for a little while?
It probably did. undersell myself a lot, you know, and I guess is it a confidence thing? Is it a it's still
in Essex? I look at that because again, growing up in Essex, you don't show off about stuff. I'm saying similar to you. Like, what humble people have said some kind things about me, but I just whatever. And you just it's part maybe of our nature. But it's okay to go. Yeah, I'm doing all right.
That's it. And I meet other people, and and they start just. I met a guy the other day. First time I met him, and all he was doing was trying to sell me stuff. And I'm like, I'm just out there doing it. And I think one thing I learned from an early age was, and again, it's listening. And I think, you know, and people buy from people. And I guess I'm out there, and I don't do lots of networking. I've got a really good network of people, I think. But I don't know. Yeah, it's starting to feel a bit like a business, but I don't want it to distract what I'm doing, if that makes sense.
Still want to be doing the thing that lights you up, the creativity side,
And that's it. I mean, I've got 4 shoots this week, which are all different, you know what I mean? Every shoot I've got this week, I've got to do a Zumba instructor on Thursday morning. I'm out with Together Co on Thursday afternoon, then I'm in Seven Oaks for a business show, and then I'm doing a wedding on Saturday. But it's like, I'm like buzzing for the week ahead. It's amazing, but it still feels like not a hobby, just perhaps I'm just a little bit, you know, gobsmacked by what I've achieved, you know, because everybody's like, you've done so well, and I'm like, yeah, it's doing all right, isn't it? But I don't see it like that.
And we should like, I think it's really important. Actually, it's really important to celebrate those wins on whatever they are on the way. It is so important to do that and actually take a step back and again about being present, about taking that step back and the realisation, going, you know what, I've done well, I've done all right, and because we don't do that enough, because there's always the next thing. So I'm setting up this now, I'm going to do this, and then there's always something, and we're always going to keep progressing, and that's great. I'm not saying not to do that. I'm not saying not to do that. Be ambitious. I'm more ambitious today than I've ever been, right?
Yes.
Do that, but at the same time, take those moments to just stop and go. I look at the perfect example for me, like the 100th episode, which you were there, film. You know what I mean? Like,
awesome.
If I could just bottle that. You know what I mean? That moment was a moment I did actually go, done all right, Whatever goes on, I've done all right, And I just looked round, and it was just surrounded by people that see me and love me and whatever, and you go, I'm done. Like, this is a good moment. I want to bottle this. We'll keep that one. So, and you managed to capture it brilliantly, being the creative genius that you are. Boom! I'm on the way to it. But mate, look, you as you know, you filmed many of our top table events. So
mate, always inspiring. Always inspiring.
You know the drill, right? With the cards. So we've got our storytelling cards right here. So pick one and then hand it back to me.
I won't be able to read it. That's
you pass it to me. We'll read it out. If you could eliminate one security or fear, which would it be, and how might life change without it?
Oh, do you know what? I'm just going to go with like impulse. First thing that comes into my head, projection. I'm getting better at it, and this is my whole life. But someone would just like not get back to me on an email, and I'd be like, oh God, what have I done? Why don't they? You know, why? And that's the whole ghosting in business and stuff like that. It's taken me a long time to realise it is just people. And it's not, is it insecure? I don't know. But I used to get really, really like days. It'd eat into me for absolutely no reason at all. So that's probably.
I guess being able to let go of that, right? Like that's a big thing, in it. Just being able to try and let go of that feeling and this, and not, because we're all guilty. Certainly me, where you other people's reactions to stuff can affect how you react to stuff, and it's actually going, that's on them and not on me, and letting go of that.
And I try and flip it now.
Yeah.
And it's this might be a bit arrogant, but you know, this is I've had to give therapy to myself to get through. So, and it's almost like it's their loss, you know, in a kind of a bit of an arrogant way. But it helps me go, put it to one side, move on, instead of sitting there. I would, you know, just worrying about it. But it's just, and the way I look at it now, there's more than enough business for everybody. You're not going to sit with everybody. You're not going to be everybody's cup of tea, style. You know what they want, and it's, you know, people find you for a reason in this universe, I think. You know, so, you know, and the ones that don't, that's just life. You know.
Agree. Mate, honestly, thank you so much for coming on.
It's been a pleasure.
It's been such a brilliant. I knew it would be. Like we loads of time just chatting away at stuff. And I'm like, mate, we need to do this, and I'm so glad we managed to do it. And listen, thank you. I guess for your love, kindness, and support for me over the last few years as well. Since I've got to know you, mate.
And do you know what? I was thinking about this on the way here. We probably met each other probably about 4 years ago, believe it or not, at the Worthing Business Show, I think it was. You had a little stand there, and I remember you going, I remember you saying, and it was just like, I'm going to meet that guy again somewhere. I knew it. Yeah, and it's, the rest is history, as they say.
And it's been great, like I said, we've done some great stuff, and we'll do lots more together.
And it's always a pleasure. I'm always grateful for anything you throw my way, and it's nice to just work. I'm seeing your top table events. It's just nice to see and hear people's stories. For me, I feel quite privileged to be on the outside, capturing it as well. It's just nice to, what you're doing is amazing as well, mate.
Thank you, mate. Well, listen, it's been awesome. I can't wait to get this out there. So thanks for your honesty and everything, and your vulnerability, and it's going to be. It's going to be a good one to share, so thank you, mate. I really appreciate it.
Brilliant. Take care.
And as they say, is a wrap.